Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. I'm so excited here to introduce my guest for today, Penelope, who is going to be just a shining example of what spa life is. Because remember, the spa and spa life is for seek power always, that power within you. And Penelope Jane Smith is the premier financial freedom expert for women entrepreneurs. She is an acclaimed international speaker and certified trainer with 19 years of teaching experience. She is also the author of the Little Book of Prosperity, which I think is probably not too little in the information it provides. And she has led live events with up to 200 attendees, sharing the stage with other movers and shakers like Mark Victor Hansen, Harv Eker, Mandossian, Loral Langemeier, and Ali Brown. Through her signature programs like Prosperity 101, she has helped thousands of entrepreneurs improve their relationship with money. Penelope, welcome to the show.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here, Diane. Thank you for having me. Yay.
Yeah, absolutely. So great to have you here. You know, we talk about how you, create your life. I mean, so many people live their life by default where they just let things happen. And we really speak to women to stand more in their power. You know, there's so many times where we, let our power, get away from us versus the times we stand in our power. And we're going to talk to you about some specific examples around that. But I really would love to start with, how is it that you consciously live your life?
Okay. Well, I think that in terms of consciously creating and stepping into your power, anywhere that you can shine the light of awareness and make conscious choices in your life instead of being in default mode, that's going to have you step into your power and manifest and create from there, right? So, and this applies to multiple areas in my own life. So if we were to take like the big three, right? Like relationships, health, money, those are like the top three things people, typically want to improve or work on. So from the perspective of relationships, getting clear that my number one lifetime goal is to enjoy loving, connected relationships, just knowing that that's my goal and that awareness has me show up a lot differently in my life. So now if I have a long drive somewhere, instead of listening to music, I'll often call a friend to connect.
Right.
Also organize my schedule to have plenty of time to play with my baby. I mean, I guess like he's technically a toddler now because he's almost 2, but he's still.
I remember when you were pregnant.
Yeah. And then my husband and I still make conscious plans to have date nights so that we get our special time together as well. Like this, and actually, a few days from now, we're going to go see Cirque du Soleil. We've got a babysitter lined up, which is cool because Cirque du Soleil was actually our first date. So it's always like particularly romantic.
That's so fun.
Back. Yeah.
I want to take a moment here because, for our listeners, I know some of them will be out driving and I just want to kind of, have them maybe pull over and actually grab a pen and paper, because when we're talking about the top 3, right? And the fact that we're starting with having a life goal, many of you think that, the big goal is about your business. And I love this, Penelope, where you're just really presencing what your life goal is. Why are you doing what you're doing? And really having connection around relationships. I mean, it's something you and I are on completely the same page with, because who we spend our time with, who we're connecting with, fuels our life in a much deeper way to do what we're doing. So, as we're going through this, for our listeners, really look at what is, your relationship as we move into, health and money. What are those things and what are you doing to really have that be the foundation of how you are building your life. So I love that you start with relationships, and you have some really fun things that you're doing around health. So from the perspective around health, how are you consciously creating that?
Yeah. So my lifetime goal around health is to have, vibrant health and longevity. And one of the things I started doing is setting 1, 3, 10, 1 year, 3 year, 10 year, and lifetime goals. I think a lot of people are good at setting 1 year goals, and they usually set like a lot of them, like maybe more than they could do in a year. But they lose sight of where they want to be in like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, lifetime. And if I want connected, loving relationships, and I want financial freedom, and I want vibrant health and longevity over my life, then there's some things I need to do now and continue to do, right?
Right.
I want to do, one of my 3 year goals is to do a new book and do a whole best-selling campaign around that. So there's some things I'm doing now to get ready for that. even though that's 3 years away. So that's really helpful. So in terms of health, some of the things that I'm doing to support that goal now are I follow a specific food plan. I don't eat flour or sugar. And I'm part of a 90-day challenge right now. I take dance breaks during my workday. And I follow a compassionate schedule, including, and this is rare and strange, going to bed ridiculously early.
What is that? What's your time?
So what I've been doing is getting ready for bed at the same time I get my baby ready for bed.
Okay.
And so like between 6:30 and 7, we start the process. By like 7:30, we're in bed. And so sometimes I fall asleep before 8, and sometimes I stay up and read for a while. But then when I wake up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, whenever my toddler decides it's time to wake up, then I feel good. Right.
Nice. I love that you give yourself that permission, right? And just giving yourself that space and to be able to really, honor your health. And, one of the things that someone had mentioned to me, and I love how you've got like the increments of years over time, because you're right. Sometimes we're so narrow focused in, this week or even this year, and people think that they're really on track with doing that. But I had someone mention that like if 20 years from now, you've got some big things that you want to do. What do you need to do now to have the vitality to actually be able to do those things? Yep. And so looking at the perspective of that, of who you're being, and if you're tired or have aches and pains or you've got things now, can you imagine like where you're going to be at on that trajectory? And what do you need to do now in order to make that happen? So I love that you're so proactive in that, and the dance breaks just makes it fun. I mean, it makes a fun way of how you're experiencing your day. So I love this. So I'm leaning in. What's money?
So then from the perspective of money, I'm just sharing some of the ways I approach this in life. Yes. So one thing that has been really impactful over the last, decade plus is that I have weekly money dates, which is kind of like date night with your partner, but it's sacred time to give your money your full attention. So I have my money dates scheduled out in my calendar for the year, because there's been times in my life where I didn't do that, and then I might miss money dates for, months, and that doesn't feel good. So I really like having it scheduled out. And then every week I pull out my money date checklist and I just start going through it. Sometimes I light a candle just to kind of create sacred space and be like, set the mood with my money, get some tea, make it special. And then I just kind of go through the checklist, and that keeps me really connected to my money. It helps me actually become more attractive to money. I'm able to catch little things sooner. And it's just a really, really wonderful prosperity practice.
I love that. I love that. And so like approximately like how long do you do that? Do you set an intention when you're there? And is there something that you set forth like, hey, this is what I'm going to do next week? Like what's the experience of that for you?
So what I do now is I have an hour a week, and I would love to have more, but there's, other goals and other things that I'm doing too. Right. I actually, some people with with my financial coaching clients, when I recommend that they do money dates, it's like really confronting. They're like, oh my God, actually interact with my money? It's so great. They like freak out. I love it. I love getting in there and connecting with my money. So I don't resist my money dates at all. I look forward to them. It's a treat. And so I have a checklist of like, here's the things that I do weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And so I pull out the checklist and I just start on thing one, and then I go through like that.
Right. I love that so much. It's one of the things we also look at is just the busyness. And, I've been talking like for the last couple of years around like people, when you ask them how they're doing, they'll say busy and just, wanting to have more impact in your life. And I just came back from an event over this weekend where they mentioned a quote saying that busy is the new stupid. And that's really confronting, because it's like, wow, it's like saying that going to the default of that versus really consciously choosing what you're doing. Like the busyness leaves us just like in the energy of overwhelm and things that aren't supporting us. And so if we actually pull ourselves out of that, how can we be more smart with our time? How can we actually have more of a relationship with what you're doing? And the examples that you've been giving are such strategic ways that you're living your life. What are some of the secrets that you do to, really stand in that for your life, having more impact in how you experience your life?
Can I share one thing about the
Yeah.
people saying I'm busy?
Yes.
Have you noticed that the most common response when somebody says, how are you? I'm busy. The next person almost always says, that's good. Have you heard that?
Yes, I have heard that, but yeah, thanks for presencing
And I'm
that.
like, that's interesting. So I
Yeah.
feel like we're in this, our culture. I wrote an article for my Prosperity Express newsletter on breaking free from the adrenal lifestyle.
Yes.
I think the culture is one of being really busy and stretched and maxed.
Right.
And it's
Not like that's an honor, like a badge of honor.
it's
Like
an
the more
honor.
busy you are, the more,
Look at how busy I am. And like, I've totally done this. Like sometimes in my newsletter, I'm like, woohoo, I've been flitting around here and here. And then I was at Ali Brown's iconic thing. And then I did my event and did it. And I'm like, am I bragging about how busy I am? Like, wait, no. It's
Right.
weird.
But
So,
it's right on about the whole adrenaline part, right? Because, when I was in law enforcement, right, when I was answering 911 calls, it was, the adrenaline of going from one emergency after the other. And I had to really kind of reset myself when I retired from that work to be like, okay, every day is not an emergency. These are things that how we want to live our life. I mean, we have priorities and things that we do, but when we live in that place, not only does it affect our health, but is it really productive? I mean, is it really the life that we want to live, and what is that lifestyle that we want to have? I mean, we all have pushes in certain times that, we're, doing a live event or things that we're doing, but to have that every day, just think about the impact that has, on our life. So I love some of the practices that you're doing around that.
right. Okay. So now then remind me of what your question was.
Yeah. So sorry. So what is just like the secret for you to get the most impact where you're getting out of the busyness? So like, what are you doing around that?
Wow. I've implemented so much over the years around that because I think that for a long time, I've looked at like, how can I step out of this and consciously create my life? And one of the biggest tools and most helpful tools I have to say is the concept of time blocking, which I think I heard somebody else on your podcast talk about. But the way I do it is I have like a weekly schedule template, and some people do a monthly template. Like my friend Sage Levine, she has a monthly schedule template.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to do it weekly, and the first thing you block out is recovery time. That's time away from your business. Because if you don't block that out first, sometimes you'll never get any.
Right.
Right. And because I have a small baby and it's important for me to have a relationship with him, I have a lot of time away from my business right now. I work maybe 20, 25 hours a week because being with him is really important to me. So that's blocked out first. And then the next one is remodel time, which is when you're working on your business. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is results time, which is when you're working in your business. If you've ever heard the story of like putting the stones, pebbles, and sand in the jar, you have to put the stones in first, then the pebbles in the sand. It's kind of like that. And then you can kind of make everything work. But it's very easy if you're going to the result stuff and being in your business, it's very easy to have that take over everything.
Yes.
And never get to any of the other important stuff and never really move forward. So that's a big one that I've used for a long time. Another is the consciousness of asking, what's the highest and best use of my time?
Yes.
And what's the income producing project?
Right. I love that. Yeah, it's so good.
Yes. And also like really looking at what can I let go of and what can I delegate? That helps too.
Right. I was, again, I was part of this event this weekend with Sandra Yancey, and part of the discussion we were talking about, she had several like multi-million dollar, like, women who've had business over time that just really started looking at what are those practices. And she talked about like, what are you starting? And then also, what are you stopping, right? So many times we will add more and more on our plate without looking at what are we stopping, and really seeing like, it can't all happen at the same time, and really knowing like what those priorities are. So it's just those little nuances, right? These conversations are so important to have. I know that, some of our women who are listening right now are probably doing some multitasking, and hopefully they're taking some moment out for themselves to just really listen to some of these things and really see like if there's one thing that they can shift and change, and how can that happen for them. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we really look at here, with Spa Life, it's seek power always, that power within you. And we talked a little bit in the beginning about how, there's times where we really stand in our power, and there's times where we feel, really disempowered, where we either gave our power away or we felt very powerless. And I know you have a very, powerful journey and powerful story of when you particularly felt disempowered in your life. And I would love for you to share that.
Okay. I think what you're talking about is the real estate stuff. So, yeah, I had taken $10,000 of my own money, turned that into over $6 million in real estate over the course of 4 years. And I was on track to be able to retire by the time I was 31. And then in the 2008 market crash, it just all fell apart. I ended up losing everything. I had 35 properties all over the US. Like they all, went to foreclosure. I lost my own home to foreclosure. And that was definitely a place of powerlessness, right? Because I lost everything and I was eventually forced to declare bankruptcy. And no matter how much I struggled and fought, like the tide was against me. And I remember watching the movie The Big Short and reading the book like later when that came out, kind of about the financial crisis. And it made me feel kind of relieved. And it also made me feel really sad because I was like, wow, I didn't have a chance, And so it kind of released some of the pressure that I was like, bad or wrong or, had totally screwed up my life. Cause I was like, look, this was way bigger than me, but it was also so sad.
Right. Right.
So there was definitely that. And I fell into, feeling really depressed and anxious because I just didn't know what to do. And I owed all these people money. And I was like, I remember I went to the auction. I don't know why I did this. It's a very masochistic thing. I went to the auction for my house on the courthouse steps. And there's these like little investor guys, kind of huddling around the guy that's announcing the different houses. And I was like, man, I used to be one of those guys. I didn't buy stuff at the courthouse steps, but I did invest in property, right? And then the person who was reading about the properties, he's like, okay, so the borrower here is Penelope Van Hooley. And I was like, I am losing my home. Say my name right. It was just so sad.
Yeah.
And then like from that moment, I was like, oh my God, when are they coming to get the house? So, I was like living in fear that I was going to come home and the locks would be changed and my pets would be trapped inside. And then eventually my electricity got turned off and I couldn't afford to get it turned back on and everything in the fridge rotted. And it was just like, yeah, that was a very disempowering time.
Right. Well, what is so powerful about you sharing this is that you actually experienced some of the fears that people have had that's happened. Maybe they've not actually had that happen, but to actually have it happen and come to fruition. How is it? I mean, that is a very, deep place. I mean, especially, you think like if you build up to 6 million, right? You think, okay, I've got this, right? This is like, I'm on the path and that's happening. And, to actually lose that, how is it that you were able to build yourself back and come to an empowering place?
I think the thing that really turned things around for me was I decided to stop focusing on myself and focus instead on how I could support other people. So I got invited to go to this event that I had paid for a few years previously, $5,000 event, and they wouldn't give me refunds no matter what. So I'm like, well, I should go because I don't know what to do, but I need to do something. Right. And so I went to the event and the facilitator stood up in front of everybody and he announced that he wanted to win a Nobel Prize for single-handedly turning the economy around. And I was like, what? The nerve of this guy, right? And then he made an offer to be part of a high-level mastermind on Richard Branson's private island, Necker Island. And I was like, okay, that's very nice. There's no way I'm going to do that. And then he announced that it was on my birthday. And something like clicked in me and was like, this is what you're supposed to do. And I mean, I had like less than $1,000 to my name, no job, no credit, no house. And I was like, really, I have 4 days to come up with $50,000. Wow. Okay. Let's do it. And, and I did it. And then I was sitting there on this billionaire's private island, sitting with the question of, how could I single-handedly turn the economy around?
Right, right. So wait a minute, I got to rewind here a second here. So how did you come up with $50,000 in that amount of time being where you were?
Yeah, pretty wild, right? So I believe that there's at least 10 solutions to every problem.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, if this is meant to be, then I'm going to work it out. And so what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to send my inner critic on a coffee break, and I'm going to come up with at least 10 ways that I could do this, no matter how crazy they are.
Okay.
I'm just going to come up with 10 ways. And so I started listing things out. At first I was like, maybe I could sell something for $50,000, or maybe I could sell 10 things for $5,000, or maybe I could sell 50,000 things for $1. You know, I kind of like broke it down, math like that. The program came with some bonuses. I was like, well, maybe I could sell off the bonuses. Maybe I could, you know, sell some other physical assets. Maybe I could get a personal loan, you know, like, so I just like went through all these things. Maybe someone would do a profit share in my company. And about 4 of those things together ended up working.
Okay. I love that. It's so helpful for the people to hear, like, you know, because if they're stuck back going, how did she get there? Right. About what your process is, and just having the mindset that there's always 10 solutions and that there is ways to do that and how to work through that. I think that it's brilliant. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
It was pretty magical. It felt like if this is my next step, then it's going to work, you know?
Right.
And it did. And I got the download, like everybody else was doing this like casino night thing down in the main area. And then I was up on the crow's nest on the very tippy top of the island, just like sitting with the question of what could I do? And can I tell you my download, Diane?
Yes, please.
Okay, so here's what I got. I realized that there's a difference between somebody's personal economy and the economy at large. Mm-hmm. And so my personal economy was in the tank, right? Other people on the island and other people I knew were having their best year in business ever. And then there were other people like me who were losing their homes, losing their businesses. And I thought, okay, if I could support enough individual entrepreneurs in shifting their personal economy, then we would hit a tipping point, and that would shift the economy of the world. And so I started making microloans to women entrepreneurs in third world countries, because I figured that way I could have a positive global impact right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And I started working with entrepreneurs on not how to, you know, make millions of dollars in 10 years, but like, how do you make $500 this week? You know, how do you make money now? Yeah. And by really, really focusing on supporting them, and that was something that I was pretty good at, then what happened was, as a byproduct, my business grew to triple its biggest year ever. So it kind of like got me back on the path.
Right. I love that so much. So let's just go full swing to the other side. So now, like, what really, you know, makes you feel powerful?
Oh, thank you. Well, I got to tell you, I feel so alive and so in my power when I'm leading my Prosperity 101 live 3-day event, because I'm so passionate about supporting other entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurial women, to create more ease and peace and freedom around finances, and to avoid some of the horrible, painful mistakes that I've made, or if it's too late, they've already made mistakes, then help them recover and let them know, like, it's not over, you're okay, like, you know, you could rise like a phoenix, like I have. So I'm really, really passionate about that.
Right. Well, and how amazing to have, you know, people be able to work with you who, I mean, you've literally been through it all. You've had worst case scenario, and you know what it's like to be, you know, at rock bottom, and how to move through that. And not from this, like, you know, you're going to make $1 million in the next 30 seconds, but from a place of like, you know what, hey, let's look at what is the platform for you? How is it that you can make those shifts and changes now, like this week, for your family, and impacting and making that happen. So I think that's so brilliant that you just, you know, you stood up for yourself and you didn't let that, you know, take you out. I mean, any experiences that we have can completely take us out, but when we can really look at what are the lessons and the ways that we can stand back in our power and really then, you know, turn around and help other people with that. It's one of the things I love about you, and I love what you're up to and what you're doing, which is so great. So thank you for that. And one of the things that I love looking at is, because we look at environments, and we were talking about, you know, your relationships and your health and money. And I think another part of another environment that is really important is your home, your physical space. And because we feel different in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our office, you know, we feel different in those different places. So what is your favorite room in your home, and why?
Well, the master bedroom I call the palace in the sky. Because it's huge and light and has like super high ceilings and a nice view. And it's got room for my giant 8-foot purple beanbag. So I get to like sit I get to snuggle up and nurse and cuddle with my baby in that. And yeah, I just feel really happy. And I feel like my soul and my aura have room to like expand in that space.
Oh, sounds like a heavenly sanctuary. I love it. So good. So I know, Penelope, that our listeners are going to want to, stay in contact with you. And I know you also have a free gift. Would you like to share what that's about?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, something that's been really impactful for me is doing the weekly money dates. And a question I get a lot is like, well, what do you do during your money dates? Right? And so I've put together a money date checklist template so that you can adapt. So you can like keep some of the stuff, edit some of the stuff. I change mine around as I want to, focus on different things. But I have a money date template that you can download, and it's like the checklist that you can print out. I keep mine I have a little binder for my money dates, and my checklist is just like the first thing. So when I do my money dates, I just go and start on it. So you can download that at moneydatechecklist.com, moneydatechecklist.com. And then that'll also give you the newsletter I mentioned, my Prosperity Express newsletter every other week, where you'll get little articles and helpful tips and tools for living in prosperity and creating wealth. And there's a quiz of the week, so you can enter to win $50. So I actually bribe people to read my newsletter. I don't know anybody else that does that, but I think it's fun to send people unexpected checks in the mail. So I just want to give you a heads up. You could do that. But definitely download the checklist, and I would encourage you to start having money dates, because money loves attention, and you'll be able to attract and keep more money when you do that.
Right. I love that you have these giveaways as part of that, because here you are talking about money, and when people set the intention and they're actually receiving those checks, that makes it fun and engaging. So hey, people, you want to get that newsletter. This is like the newsletter that pays. little hint there. So that is amazing. And how can people like stay in contact with you and maybe follow you and just be able to stay on the latest and greatest?
Well, I think the easiest way is to go ahead and download the checklist, because then you'll also get my newsletter, and I include a little personal note about what's up in my life. And then you can always just email me back, right? Like I check all those responses personally. I also like getting on Facebook. I'm not on there as much now that I have a baby, but I do my best to like at least get on and wish people happy birthday most days. Yeah. So my name is Penelope Jane Smith. And you could check out my personal profile and my business page, same name, and connect with me that way. Those are probably the best two ways, email and Facebook.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put all those links in the show notes so people will be able to stay, connected to you as well. So any final thoughts?
Yeah, let's see. So I was kind of perusing the internet a while back, and I stumbled upon this quote, like one of these little Facebook, like memes that people post on Facebook. Yeah. And it just like stopped me in my tracks. And what it said was, do something today that your future self will thank you for.
Ooh, I love that. Right? Say that again, because I'm sure people would maybe miss that.
Yeah. So do something today that your future self will thank you for. And so I think a lot about like, is my future self going to be happy to have done my money date? Is she going to be happy to have eaten this thing? Like, what's my future self going to be happy about? And when I look back at my past self, there's some things that I'm like, thank you so much. Thank you for building the email list. Thank you for learning how to do live events. Thank you for running this business. Like, thank you for learning all this money stuff. Even thank you for going through all that real estate stuff so that now we can be where we are today. So I think that when you come from that frame of like, what's my future self going to be happy to have done? Right. That's really helpful. And of course, I think that the money dates are something your future self will love you for.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I just thought about one more thing that I think would be, powerful to share is that, we could be talking all afternoon. There's so many little nuggets here. Is what are some of the things that you have done to kind of shore up where you're going now, that you don't go through that experience again?
Which experience? Oh, the real estate thing?
Yes.
Oh yeah, lots. Oh my God. I'm a much, much better investor now. So, the money dates obviously are really important. with investments, keeping it more spacious, like, you know, having multiple exit strategies and not leveraging myself as much, being really a lot more careful in evaluating all the different pieces, like really evaluating the property managers, really evaluating the banks. You know, I had a bank embezzle from me. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. Like,
Wow.
what? You know, and so when somebody presents a potential deal to you, like if you're in real estate, just let you know, analyzing a real estate deal is not difficult. You can tell pretty quickly if something is under market value or if it's going to cash flow, if it meets your track criteria. But what takes time is really going through and verifying those numbers, because like if a real estate agent presents it to you, you know, they're trying to sell it, right?
Yeah.
So is the vacancy rate really 8% or is it 20? You know, is this really the rent, or is that just what they're kind of like imagining? Is this really the taxes? You know, I had some properties in New York, and I had like my formula of how I calculated what I thought the taxes would be. And what I didn't realize, because I wasn't as savvy, was I didn't realize that the property taxes in New York were like way higher than my formula. You know, so I think that's the thing, is making sure that you really you trust, but verify.
Right. Verify. Due diligence.
And then also keep way more cash reserves on hand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think in the past I used to stretch myself more.
Right.
And I'd be like, okay, let me pull together all the cash I have available and do this deal.
Yeah.
You know, and now I like to keep personal reserves. I like to keep business reserves.
Right.
I like lots of cushion. Right? And that also allows me to feel more just like secure and calm and spacious, because, you know, if something doesn't go right in my business or some emergency happens, like I had to, you know, spend about $3,700 getting my car fixed recently. And it wasn't a big deal. It was just like, okay, great. Well, good thing we have money, you know?
Yeah. Right. I had a friend of mine that used to say that if money solves it, it's not a problem.
There you go. That's cool. So, yeah, I'm a big fan. Oh, one thing I will say, in the past, I avoided having like a reserve, like a rainy day account, emergency account, because number one, I believe in the law of attraction. So I didn't want to call something an emergency account and then attract emergencies. Right. I also had the goal of, I'm going to put 6 months of expenses in here. And it was too big a chunk to work off right off the bat. And then one of my mentors told me, just get $1,000 in there as soon as you can. I was like, oh, 1,000, I can do $1,000. Okay. Yeah. So number one, I don't call it an emergency fund. I call it a reserve fund.
Got it.
Call it a contingency fund. So to just avoid that thing. And then having that little $1,000 buffer between you and reality, it's not really enough ultimately, but it's such a nice start.
Yeah. Feels good.
Yeah, that's enough to like cover a deductible or replace a tire, or, you know, it'll cover a lot of little things.
Right.
When you don't have that, could be a really big deal. And then of course you can build it up from there, but it was nice to kind of chunk that down and be like, oh, okay, I could start with just $1,000.
Right. Right. That's so important, because so many times we go from that all or nothing. Like if I don't have like 100,000 in there, you know, then what good is it going to be? But when you have zero, then, you know, that also doesn't support you. So having those foundational things to just be able to start, right, to start somewhere is so helpful. So thank you for those.
It is. And the vast majority of people in the United States can't cover $1,000 emergency with cash. They would have to go to debt. So just having that little cushion keeps you ahead of probably more than 70% of people.
Definitely. Oh, I love this. Oh, thank you for those extra little tips that we kind of snuck in there at the end, which is so great. So I just want to thank you so much. And again, listeners, you know, you'll want to go grab the links to connect with Penelope and her newsletter and her free gift. And you're going to start scheduling those money dates and, you know, really start stepping into this conversation with yourself to really do that. And I just want to thank you, our listeners, that, you know, the most important, you know, commodity that we have is our time, and that how much we value you taking the time to be here with us, to just, you know, tune in and just be part of this community. And, you know, part of it also is to connect. And we would love for you guys to put some comments below whatever platform you're watching this on, or listening to put in the comments of what is your takeaway? What's the one thing that you're going to do? You know, are you going to start having money dates? You know, are you going to start evaluating? Are you going to put in some reserves that you're going to have? You know, what does that look like? You want to be able to have those things, and make sure that you tag both Penelope and myself, because we want to support you. We want you to be part of the community to help. And, I also in the show notes will have my free gift of the liferesetquiz.com, which will also give you a pulse on what's working and not working. We have all these tools to be able to support you, and they really take moments. So you just take a few moments to do these things, to have the foundation to be able to really support you. And again, here we are, women building business, supporting each other. Share this message. If you can think of one girlfriend that could really use this message, please share it with her. Please tag her in here. This is how we really reach each other, is building community and being able to support each other. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye.